We're live.
Oh shit.
The Dream Show has returned.
It's weird.
Are we still calling it the Dream Show? Do we still want to call it that? I mean, we've been gone long enough that we could just like do a complete reinvent. And I was trying to think of like a celebrity that's done a reinvention, but like, who is that?
I see. I thought about that too. That's one of the sticking points I've had mentally on starting a gig again, because it's like, is that still the thing? Is it what it is or what it was? What's up with it? It's hard to do it by myself without having. I mean, you for sure to bounce off of and like help set up a lot of the technical side of it. But I think there's other people and opportunities to set up some of that technical side too. But it just wasn't, I don't know, maybe as easy, and so it became,
Didn't have the same magic. I don't know. I feel like
Yeah.
you have some of the magic. You're getting some of your magic over there on the PGF Insiders. I've been proud watching. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at your setup right here. You're looking way more professional than I am.
I mean, you also changed a little bit in your time, since then, where we were in the studio over at Parkway Automotive. We had it nice and easy with that. But yeah, I think working with the PGF Insiders has been fun. That was a little bit of a curve, if you will. It's like we're friends, we've been buddies and known each other, but like they've had their show before, for a while. They like have been doing it when I was on the PGF myself competing.
Yeah, I mean, they're like the OG Insiders because they were the only fans.
Yeah, and that was a little bit weird for me because I didn't want to come in and feel like I was maybe taking something or gonna like push somebody out, whatever. Like I didn't want to be that dude in some kind of way, and it just took a little bit of time, I think, for us all to kind of find our groove as well. And we're still doing it,
Yeah.
through because things have changed fast for all of us. If you've been following us and you're watching this, then yeah, that's probably the only reason you're watching this or whatever right this minute. Or if you're somehow
for
here.
those that haven't been following, what has been
here
going
for the
in our
first
life.
time.
Yeah, the people that are tuning in for the first time, what is happening? We're currently on
This is episode 206,500. I don't know. Let me see. Of the show here that we don't have a name, the Dream Show, allegedly.
We're on the Dream Show, but in the current like of what we've been dealing with and what we've been like what we're talking about with the PGF and the Insiders, like the Insiders got a little bit more traction because the PGF itself got a little more traction. I mean, we've been in Vegas for the first time this last season. That was huge. That was crazy. Like I haven't even really gotten on the internet and talked about like what that experience alone was, and like we dove right into like Keelan left and headed out to Europe, and we worked on a documentary in his in-betweens. And in those in-betweens, we, instead of creating a documentary, we created a docu-series. And then in that time period, as we all crescendoed, the whole sport exploded overnight. And we had CJI. You were out there at CJI. You blew your pants out.
I did. I mean,
what was the experience like on CJI for you?
Man, and so yeah, before I even go into that part of it, like you just like made me think about a lot of other things right then in that time frame. I'm not sure when the last, honestly, one of these was, but there's I think that was maybe even season 5-ish time frame. But the whole thing here kind of kicked off with that PGF season 2 for us and for me as the athlete. So like what's changed since then till now is kind of really wild. Kind of had a little flashback while you were saying some of that stuff. But
just the potential
to say that
there.
To even say that, like thinking about what we did on PGF going into season 2, where it we were like, hey, we're gonna film this thing, you're gonna come be there with me full time, be in the room, we're gonna let's see what happens to couple weeks, a month or whatever, I guess maybe before CJI. Brandon is like, hey, I need you to call me. And I'm like, mm, that's weird. That doesn't feel good. Uh, a lot of times that kind of thing is not good news from people without some sort of lead in. They'll give you some sort of lead up if it's particularly good news. But I think Brandon knows me, and so he wanted to play it a little bit and said that they needed an announcer for the first night of CJI, and he threw my name in, and they said yes, and he accepted for me, and he hoped that that I wouldn't be upset, or whatever. And so yeah, somehow got there and got to do night one of CJI, and it was, I don't know, man, it's still kind of surreal in a lot of ways to have been there and done it, and like it to be such a big thing, it still felt like something we'd already done a lot of times, but it was special with the people there. Um, what up? What up,
Oh,
Iron Dad?
our dad games.
Yo, yo,
That's crazy.
welcome back. Oh, yeah, dang, I can't think of this guy's first name right now, but I know who you are, brother.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I was same thing. I was trying to remember
Mhm.
the first name, but I was like, I gotta recognize that. Look, our fans are already back, Steven.
We out
They
here.
followed you all the
We
way
out
through
here.
CJI. So, like, going into the CJI and like going into that whole experience, like, what was your expectation? Because we had the crescendo of the PGF, and we had Vegas. Like, where did you feel like that was going? Chris, that's right. It was Chris.
Yeah.
I knew I didn't recognize your online
No, for sure,
alias.
man. Hell yeah.
But how does that crescendo like feed into you right there? Like as you were coming in, did you know what to expect? Did you know that it was
Mm-mm.
gonna be what it was? Like, cause I was there, but I was like off in the stands and off in the crowd and people, and like we were recording like man on the street type stuff. But like the vibe in that thing, like I could only imagine what it was like down in the middle of the pit.
Yeah, and so I again, we've only ever done PGF, or at least for myself mostly, and like other shows, like I've done Summit Grappling, which is simple, like it's still the homies in a way, like we're kind of friends, and even the people doing the show are still buddies, and so there's no like pressure, and like I was like, what kind of numbers are realistic for this thing? Like, what are we thinking here? People are going to be showing up. Like, honestly, how many people show up for a jujitsu event? And then, like, for real, how many people are going to be watching it online? And
Right.
I knew it would be a big deal, of course, right? And for our sport and in our sport, within our niche, it was going to be a huge deal. But I didn't know what would happen overall off of it, and I think we got a lot more than we expected, because going in and being part of the like production meetings and hearing some of the way things are done, on that scale, and then what the expectations were, at least to be good and successful, were crushed
Yeah.
like instantly, with like the viewership and the people, attendance wise, ticket sales stuff. It was thank you, man. uh yeah, but it definitely went way above the expectations that I think all of us had.
Yeah.
um and yes, dude, like standing there at first for like the big show open part, uh, I was like, I mean, I don't know how to do that well yet. Like, I don't know. I've done the PGF, and I know it's sort of what we're looking for there on some of those, and like I can flex on that a little bit side to side. I feel pretty easy with, they'll let me do whatever I want to do, uh, and it felt like then they were basically said the same thing here. Was just like, the go for it. So there's still like, I feel like this job has a lot of creative
Yeah.
opportunity for whoever that is. And so then, as man, too many side notes, but yeah, we'll get into some other parts of it in a second, I guess. But like, to get ready for the big opening, like I was talking with with people, you know, and Brandon was like, you should just get on there and just be like, it's CJI, you know, just like really just like
Yeah.
send it for the big one.
Selling out.
Yeah, it's like because it is right. It's like this is the first. This is going to be the thing that opens this like historic event. You know, this is like the first one where somebody, you know, and it was just like, holy shit, that's going to be me, you know, and like, what does that mean for everybody else or anybody else? Nothing, you know, but like for me, I was like, wow, pretty crazy. And so I'm ready, dude. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna hit it, and like nobody knows that I'm gonna do this, but me and Brandon. Like they don't know this is like the thing. And so it's cool. I'm just kind of waiting on my cue, you know, and it's gonna hit inside the arena, and it's gonna go through the live stream, and that's gonna be the open is like boom, it's CJI. You know, then I whatever had written about, you know, getting started and da 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 da.
Right.
Um,
what was the crowd pop like
well,
as that went?
So this again, you know how it goes for me, right?
Yeah.
You know how it goes. I nailed it. And then they were like, "Oh, Steven, hold on. We didn't have your mic turned up or turned on or whatever to everything. Can you do that again? That was amazing." And so they like heard it in their headsets, but it didn't go out.
Yeah.
And so then they were like, "Oh shit, that was good though. Can you do that again?" And I was like, "Oh my god, no, probably can't." Like in my brain, that's what my brain told me. But I was like, "Yeah, I got it." And I just just hit it again, and we went into it, and the crowd like I almost passed out. I felt like because they were, you know, I don't know if I held my breath or whatever it was.
They
but
pulled the air out of the
got lightheaded, you know.
Yeah.
And it felt really special. You know, it was really cool to be there. And there's a few times that kind of happened during the event, you know, when big moments would happen and you could feel like the energy of the crowd and stuff. And it's like, man, this is what's up. I like that. I like that arena feeling was like really, really fun. With everybody kind of looking down into the grappling area instead of having that flat plane or either the athletes or the surfaces elevated above you, and so everybody's having to kind of look up onto a stage.
Yeah.
And the pit had some stuff, you know, that maybe not the best for in-house viewing and stuff like that too. It wasn't perfect. But
what was it like? Because it was great to look from the stands. But what was it like down like on the floor? Because I've heard mixed reviews on like Karate Combats, and like I didn't see much on that. It looked like they kind of had everybody still kind of raised even when they were down by the pit, right?
Yeah, you had to be on a certain level to be able to see.
Yeah,
kind of down in there unless you were like right on the edge, and about half of it was cut off at any point, sort of from like those like front kind of areas that were down on the floor level.
Okay.
But they had the big, and so this is the thing, in an arena they had the big screens, the jumbo like Tron that was also a show, and so it was really easy from anywhere to just kind of take a look up and see what you couldn't see. Now, is that optimal? I don't know, but dude, I think, you know, it's like the concert thing, you know, you like music, but then when you go there, you feel the energy of everything and the music and the people and all that kind of stuff.
Just being amongst the moment is kind of part of it.
Exactly. But you know, it's something different in that way. And so I was nervous as shit though the whole time.
Yeah,
for sure.
I've always thought that like something that would help with the viewership of combat sports, which that some guys may do this already, but like I remember my grandfather used to like, he was a diehard Gamecock fan. Like he was a diehard South Carolina fan. And we would go to like all the games, and like when you were sitting at the games, he had those, you remember like the 90s when they had those like radio headsets that were definitely giving you like crazy like radio waves and stuff, because I mean it's a giant like antenna on the side of your head, you know what I mean? So it's the but where you could hear the like, it's like radio broadcast of the show. It wasn't necessarily the television broadcast, but it was like somebody talking along
your local radio station.
Yeah, to where you actually like understood like what was going on in front of you, and somebody was talking and you knew what penalties were being called or what points and things like that. Because I think that like in live sports, I think that's what gets lost sometimes. I think sometimes the people get lost in the fact of like, wait, what just happened? What did the ref call? Like, what are they? And so, like, you know, I think as combat sports, we could do a better job of like giving a little bit more information to the in-house people as it goes. If it's not going to be something that's like a simple rule set, that like I think that's where like the PGF comes in, where it's pretty simple, and so there's not as much confusion, I feel like, when you're viewing it. Whereas like here's a comparison: ADCC, because you were at CGI and they were doing that, and then like I went over and I filmed at ADCC some, and I was there, and it's like there's a lot of cool stuff going on down there on the mat, but like it's really hard to keep up with what's all going on, especially if you're sitting back on row 57 or whatever, and there's like 3 mats going, and like if you could listen to like a red zone or listen to somebody that was like telling you what was going on down there, then it would be a lot easier to be engaged as a fan, as opposed to just being like, well, figure it out.
And the problem with that typically is that a lot of people's devices and stuff bogged down in those kind of arenas, and you can't really get Wi-Fi and things like good cell service and stuff now, or you would be able to maybe do better at that. No, I was just thinking of like the easy fix would be something that would work on your phone, but then also that's kind of a tough thing because of the capacity issues with a lot of that stuff. But I think you're right. I think there has to be some sort of near, frequency, whatever closed circuit type.
Yeah, like the closed circuit type thing or things like that. I mean, I know they still do it. The people that do it, like that I would go to if I was trying to figure this out, would be like the NASCAR people.
What you should like, and so we went to for Thomas's birthday. I got some tickets. I traded some stuff for some nice tickets for his birthday to some Braves games, or to a Braves game on his birthday. And in the section that we had got to sit in, they had like a little screen even that you could change to see different like views. Besides, like, you're sitting here, you can see the view from where we were sitting, but you can change it to like from where, if we were behind home plate, you could be from where you could see like from behind the pitcher, or you can look at different angles, and then you could also see what like the pitches were on the screen rather than trying to find on the big screen that's out there somewhere where it said it, or trying to hear the PA guy over. And so if there was some kind of way that you could maybe get the play-by-play, like, and so I like that at CJI, I had an earpiece that gave me all the play-by-play stuff in my ear too. So I was able to follow what was happening in the action through my earpiece, even when I wasn't looking at it. If I was writing anything down, I could still follow. Oh, such and such got the submission here, rather than when and a lot of times if I couldn't hear exactly if I was doing something, I would be like, oh shoot, that wasn't supposed to happen that fast.
I've always wished that we had some sort of a radio show or something, or just playing the audio from the, like, because I'll listen to the fights. Like I used to do that all the time when I was driving. I'd listen to UFC fights, like, and just be watching it on the UFC app, but it'd just be playing in the background where you could like hear the commentary. But like I've always wished that we had like, I don't know. Did you ever? I know
that's how you know if you had a good commentary team or not, or good whatever.
Oh yeah,
people are like, if you can listen on the radio and somebody can still find out what's going on or whatever, that'll be the telltale sign of maybe if we really are dealing with like that kind of stuff sometimes. And that's not to say anything bad about people, but like I think that's an art form in and of itself too. Is being
a good play, a good play by
describe, and make you feel what's happening, and that's what the team is supposed to do together. And so I think if you got good people, then that's easy to do, because you'll kind of understand what's going on, and if you're tuned in, you'll know.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like, neither one of us are old enough to really remember this, but like I mean, you might have listened to baseball games, but like I've always wished that we had like what the old timey like boxing like radio announcers, like if we had that in jiu-jitsu, that would be so cool. Like I don't know if anybody would consume it. I feel like it would. I feel like it would do well if you just had like everything that is being like, broadcast out there, as well as it was like broadcast on like a Spotify, or like on a, like where it was like play by play. like true like play
Well,
by play.
so then what is like that's I guess like all the fight companion stuff or anything like
No,
that. I know
not
no, no, I'm saying like all
yeah,
that is
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like a
yeah.
conversation with it still. And so nobody's really doing, I don't think,
Yeah, just like one person hanging onto a mic being like, and he passes the guard,
and
and
not
now, oh
talking
my
back.
god, yeah,
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 not holding a conversation with the audience. You're just doing the job of describing only.
of a
You're
play by play,
a
yeah,
narrator. Yeah,
yeah,
basically. Yeah, that I think that's an interesting concept. I don't know if it would work well as a whole for a lot of people, but I think it's an interesting thing. But I definitely think there's something to that, having something in house where people could uh, follow easier.
yeah,
It would make it, more digestible to the public.
yeah. So what was your favorite part about like because I mean it's like you said you've done local shows, you've been around the local stuff, you've been around all that like the whole career, but like this is like a big jump into this is the big show. Like I mean the PGF itself is now we're one of the big shows. Like what I mean, that's overnight. You kind of blink, and I say overnight, but I mean, we all know that that's not really how
Several
that works.
years, yeah.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Like it felt honestly, I tried to make it feel the same to like in that way as
okay,
like as a competitor, right? I wanted it like a game day kind of thing, as like you just said, the PGF we're already out there on a big scale. I had already done that event, uh, the the whole season, of season 6, and then the finale in front of a lot of people that I was really intimidated by in this aspect to perform in front of, and felt like I did a good job, and so I carried that through, as like a good vibe into it. Is like, okay, I can do this on the level, not saying that I'm at the highest level of anything or whatever, but like there's something that's working.
yeah,
And so just keep working on it and finding that out. And so with this, it was like still treat it, like you're supposed to be here, but also keep my mouth shut probably and my ears open a lot more to find out what was happening. So, around us, I'm a lot more mm, talkative at the very least, or like assertive in the conversations about things, when we're talking
yeah,
or whatever. But there I was really like trying to listen and learn a lot more from everybody else that had more experience, in these different things.
right.
And like, um, and I say, not saying that, I don't listen to you guys when y'all are saying what to do when it's, the right things. You know what I mean? But just like y'all are the homies. We're all the homies or whatever. And so it's like
Yeah,
a different thing to where it's like it's a big show now and I'm not working with my friends. These guys,
right,
they don't know
right.
me. And so I can't act like a dumbass just for kicks. They'll be thinking, they may not like
Just
that.
for giggles. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
So just like I had to play it a little bit more straight. So I was just like, I'm gonna see what's normal-ish in these
yeah.
these types of rooms and like what it is. And so they had Michael Williams from several big type shows also doing some announcing on the Saturday night. He's done
Mhm.
Bellator, several like HBO Showtime kind of things. Um, dude, lots of just tons and tons and tons of things or whatever.
Right.
And he came in earlier too, and so thankfully was there and helped like with notes and bouncing ideas off of him and listening to like what he was talking about doing and trying to match certain aspects. That way there was some continuity from day to day. Was something that was interesting to think about
Right.
because I've never. I mean, obviously, continuity day to day has been important, but it's always just me. So,
Yeah,
and,
there's no
so
handoff. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. So, with this, I was like, dang, how can I do well enough to hand off to this like real
Yeah.
real pro. Like this is him. You know, he's right up there if you wanted to measure, you know, in this field with
Yeah.
anybody, you know. But he was super nice man, and even after the fact, like that night, I'd gotten his number, and we like stayed on the phone for a little while and went through like names and whatever kind of things to put in between certain things, and how, like, you know, how would you say this, you know, what would be a
Yeah.
good, what's a good way to do this, you know. And that was really helpful and made me feel a lot more confident in basically everything, because I felt like, I don't know, I had somebody that knew what somebody that really knew this job finally, and knew what they were doing with it, to give me clear direction. And that's been something that I haven't had with us,
Yeah.
because we don't have a guy that's done this yet. That's why I got the
Well,
job.
there's nuances when you get to the well, and when you get to that level of anything like this, is that like there's nuances that make that you never would have thought about. That like people go, oh well, like make sure you don't do this inflection here every single time because then you're gonna have to do it every time, and then now by the end of the night, like you're struggling to hit
Shot.
the inflection, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, like so, like just little details like that when you work with somebody who's at like certain levels, sometimes you'll either see, like in my experience, like you either get to that point and you see stuff that people are doing that are at that level or beyond that level, and you're like, oh, okay, like it ties it all together. Or you see some people that are at that level and you're just like, oh man, they're not gonna be here long. Because you
Mhm.
can see you're like, oh, like you don't even have the system put together and you're here.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, and so, like, again, thankfully, like, I was able to be super honest and like whatever with him about this, and was
right.
like, yeah, like, hey, I don't really know what I'm doing. You
Yeah.
know, I'm just doing what I think and what I feel right, and you know, whatever I'm kind of being asked to do certain times that I think is going to work well enough.
Right.
Uh, and so yeah, so that was a thing, and so I learned from that a lot, and I learned a lot from the second night when we went back, and I was able to get down there close, and with Mandy there with me, and just kind of watch and see how he was doing everything that he was doing.
Yeah.
Um, and he was, I don't know what the right word is, I guess, but like assertive maybe. And
Mm.
is maybe I'm sticking on that word for the day. That's my word of the day, is assertive. Um, but he was moving the room a lot better. Like
Yeah, I get you.
he was getting what he wanted and needed easier than I was, because I
Well, the
didn't.
room wants to be led. Like they need to be told what's going on. They need to, and so like
And
if
I
you
didn't know what to tell
timidly,
him, right?
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
know what to
yeah,
ask. I thought I was supposed to get this. I thought I was supposed to get it, and he was like, "No, you got to go get it then, or you got to
yeah,
make sure you
yeah,
have it." And like, if they don't give it to you, then you be there, and like they'll wait on you now. But if you're
yeah,
not where they can know or whatever, then now it's all this other thing. So some of the problems were uh like the rounds, between rounds they wanted us to do a live
mhm,
update, and so I had to say, you know, after round one, uh judge one sees it for Isaac, judge
mhm,
two sees it for Steven, and judge three, you know, for Isaac. And so we got, you know, Isaac's lead, you know, after whatever.
yeah,
But like they would get it on the booth instantly, like Brandon Howell and
yeah, yeah,
Josh. And I was like off to the side somewhere else where they had told me to be, which was not close to that.
mhm,
And
mhm,
they were like, "Well, here, you can just get this on your phone," similar to what we were talking about a few minutes ago. It's like you can just
right,
get the same information they're getting on your phone. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, no problem then." So I just had like the smooth comp thing pulled up that they had, and
mhm,
would just like do it. But then I had to refresh, and they were like connected, wired to each other. And so
mhm,
they were already talking about it on the broadcast, and then they would already put it up on the thing before I'd even knew what it was. And so they're like, "All
mhm.
right, Steven, we're coming to you for the scores. Go, Steven." It's like, I don't have it. And there's like three times you may hear at least, or four, on the stream or on the live part, where it's like you'll hear my voice say, "I don't have it." And I'm like, they're like, huh?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah,
like go, Steven, go, Steven's like, I don't have it. I don't have it. I can't go. Like I was
I
wrong.
don't know.
I
Yeah,
said it wrong a couple of times because the last updated part I had was the wrong score.
was the wrong update. Yeah,
And the judges could change theirs in real time. So if they hit the wrong one accidentally and
they
I
could.
refreshed, they hit it for their next oops, shoot, I meant to hit this, but I didn't see that. And I called out, you know, it was all in favor of this guy, but one judge actually was over to here. So at the
So you
end of
actually had a split decision.
yeah, so some of the
Yeah,
scores
yeah,
were, you know, and so that was a learning curve. And so that was, I guess, part of the thing that they did by bringing me in for that first night was like I was gonna fall on the sword. So, you know, I crawled so Michael could run on Saturday night, you know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah.
I blew
But I
my
mean,
pants
like
out
that's
so my boy could get a good show in. But that's the gig. I was happy to do it though. That's what I said. I got a lot of reps and I got a lot of work with
yeah,
somebody that could like we could see. And then again, like I said, the next night I saw what he did instead, you know, and then by the end of the night, I made them give me an iPad too.
right,
And so
right.
that's what and that
right.
was actually Michael's idea too. He told me like make them give you the same thing they have. And I was like,
I would say the same thing is that like that's unless it's limited, which you know, not shooting any shade at any production side of
no,
anything,
they
but
just
it's
didn't
like
think about it.
well, what I'm saying is like I'm getting at is that like if you're capable of giving that to the team that's up there on the commentary, there's some way that that can get relayed to you without it being on like refreshing your cell phone. You
Oh yeah,
know,
they
like
just had to
that's
give me one of their iPads that the
yeah,
smooth comp
yeah.
guys, and so this is not no shade on them, but the smooth comp guys were running that part of it or whatever, and so like
Okay, okay.
they had the iPads or whatever that were given to the judges, and whatever the judges hit
And
went
just nobody
directly.
had the thought of like, oh yeah, the announcer needs a
Well,
one too. Yeah,
they thought what I was doing was in real time.
was gonna
They didn't,
work.
yeah, they
Yeah,
thought it was just as fast, and then by the time we figured it out,
it
they were
was
like,
already a lag.
and I was like,
Yeah,
hey, just give me one, and they were like, oh.
yeah,
Shit,
that
okay,
makes sense.
hold on just a second. So then they brought me one over there, you know, and I was like, oh, okay, well,
Yeah,
damn.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I just didn't know what to ask for. I didn't know.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was just trying to do whatever need, like I do, like whatever we need. What do y'all need? Okay, I'm just
yeah,
gonna do it.
yeah.
And if it makes it weird, then I'm just gonna make it weird. And
Well, and sometimes like on any project, like creative or not, like if you don't have the like structure to like hang your hat on, like that makes it hard to even really be effective. So
mhm.
you know, like if you don't know, like these are the things that we need, like hardcore for it to do. Like sometimes you spend a lot of time just wiggling around, bumping into stuff until you go, oh shit, yeah, we needed that.
Yeah, and so figuring some of those things out was great again because I learned a lot and I learned, you know, what to do, what not to do sometimes. Um and I don't know, it was great. It was super fun and to see some of the homies also, you know, being there and getting to do things and like, you know, Brandon obviously um man, thanks to him, you know, for throwing my name in there, dude. I can't really say enough about that.
Yeah,
See, it makes me want to cry right now.
yeah,
It's like people talk good about you when you're not in the room is really cool, you know.
it's
So
always nice.
for sure. I can't say thanks enough for that. So that was a lot of confidence. Like that
Yeah,
I was like, you know, I'm with it. I'm gonna send it, you know, and it is what it is. And dude, even like having AJ Agazarm on the last season, you know, being
Mhm.
like, dude, like get me hyped up on, you know, this is cool the way you do it or whatever. And maybe he was even just being nice. I don't even
Yeah,
care, but just like that was cool. It's like I don't care. People like, or at least they enjoy it enough to say something. They're not hating on it,
yeah,
you know. Like it's like it gets them going, it gets them hyped up, and I feel like it's an important part. And so I'm gonna do my best, you know, and I'm
yeah,
gonna go hard, you know. And I
yeah.
think that was the thing that was you know commented on the most about it was like people are like the difference between you know night one and night two was like it was definitely a lot more polished with
Mm,
the you know he was definitely more profesh
yeah.
and you know but you could definitely hear a lot more passion and like excitement from like my stuff but
Yeah.
because it's just raw you know it's just
Well,
me
it's just the you're
yeah
experiencing it right there on the front and on like that's what we're hearing and
and I'm
that's what
genuinely
everybody hears.
excited yeah and
Which that's
I'm a
part of
real
why a lot of people like you and follow you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. And so not to say that he's not or Michael's not excited or not whatever into it, but you know, for other things, maybe more than a jiu-jitsu event like that. You know, it's like I'm definitely into this event and this moment in time for what we do. And I kind of commented on it, man. It's like I never got my shot
Yeah.
really at the big show stuff as an athlete, you know, for whatever reasons, you know, some my own fault, some whatever. Uh, but yeah, so like being able to get out there and be a part of the big show, man, it was like it was special. It felt good.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I'm excited to keep doing it, trying to, you know, keep learning what to do and what some of those like you said earlier, you know, tells are that is like a, you know, gonna make it hard to do the job, or like what makes you seem like a cheese ball, or you know, stuff like that. You know, what are some stuff is. And then also again, still like I don't want to only be like the professional ring announcer guy only, though, to where it
Yeah.
becomes just the polished kind of like routine sort of thing. Like I like the personality parts of it to where, and maybe this is not for everybody, but I like maybe where everybody is getting a little different flavor on their intros, you know, based on who they
Yeah.
are and what
Yeah.
they're doing and
Yeah.
bringing to the thing.
So yeah, I think
So
that's where the PGF has a little bit of the what's the word I'm looking for? Like there's like a specialness or a uniqueness of like that, because it gives the ability, because you see everybody for a week and like a season, and you get to see everybody kind of like develop, and you get to see the characters, and then there's the back end of the documentary and all the different stuff that like other promotions and other things have done. This isn't like a brand new concept or anything, but like I think that the like unique aspect of the people that are at the top shines through, and that's what kind of shows, you know, like everybody's in it because they're in it for the love of the game. Like there's not one single person this last season that was at the PGF that was there because of a payday. Like everybody was there to make it happen. And I'm talking about the show. Like the athletes got paid, like it moved the bar forward on all of that. But like as far as like as everybody that was like pushing that thing over the edge for the athletes, like I'd say well over 90%, 95% of the people that work on the PGF are in the exact same shoes that you are, of like they're athletes that either are trying to get over on the next thing or have done it and didn't get the chance, or everyone is like, this is a for us by us project. Like this is for the people that have competed, that have gotten shortchanged, that haven't been like the promote, like fought the promoter battle and been back and forth of like under every different type of rule set, just trying to get experience, just trying to get, you know, maybe that payday's out there, but just trying to play the game. Those are the people that built this. And I think that that's what shows in the difference between like what you're talking about, the polished, and then just like the raw, like passion for what they're doing, you know, and that doesn't take away from the polished people that are like, they have their passion for their craft, because that's why they're polished in the way that they are.
No, yeah.
But I'm just saying that that's one of the things that I think that sets that experience apart.
Yeah, I agree with that fully. And I think that there's some polishing that needs to happen on all fronts. In that way forever, just to make sure that we're always doing the best job that we can. But I think, you know, yeah, I don't want it to be the routine, regular thing, is what I was saying, you know, to where like even a guy who's really polished and professional could come in and change into a different role or a different character and make it still different, you know, and they could have a good personality and have some charisma that's not just as that like official, you know, MC or announcer or whatever.
It's like you said earlier, we were talking yesterday or whatever about like there's a tendency that like all your ring announcers sound the same, but then you have like the 5 that don't. You know, the ones that are the big ones or whatever, they each have their own voice. And so you go, okay, how do you be the person that is you, that's not copying that person? You copy all the good traits and all the good things, but then you have your own flavor.
It's like music. right?
Yeah, that's exactly.
You know, a lot of people when they're starting, they play their favorite bands or sing their favorite
Yeah,
songs or whatever to learn and get better or whatever. And then all of a sudden, those creative juices and being able to technically do music, they can make up shit
yeah,
and it works.
yeah.
And then other people resonate with it and they like it. And is it immediately the big thing and accepted? No, not always. It takes time. But with like diligent effort and stuff like that, some of that is what catches on and becomes what's trying to be duplicated and mimicked next. You know, it's like that's what trends are. It's like somebody's got to start something that's new and different somehow,
Right.
and it catches on, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is the right
But
thing."
even then, the trend still has some sort of element of like familiarity to it for people to even pay attention to it in the first place. Because if it's too different, then people just
No,
completely
that yeah,
like walk
exactly. There
away.
has to be
Yeah,
some like they have to catch on to what you're
yeah,
doing. When they see me on there, if they clicked it on immediately and they saw me, they'd have to know what was going on
the
somehow
hook.
very quickly. You know, it
Yeah,
doesn't need to look like I'm, you know, telling you about politics or trying to get you to do something, you know, whatever like that. It needs to be like this is some type of sporting event that's
yeah.
going on and people may die and it's exciting. Um, so
Speaking of people that may die in games, I was at like the like giant anthropological museum in Mexico City over the weekend,
okay.
and they had those and I don't remember off the top of my head the name of the game, but it's the game that they played in the cartoon El Dorado where they have like the little ball and it's like a rubber ball and it bounces and they have the like little hoop up on the side. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mm-mm.
Oh my god. It's so this would make so much more sense if you knew what I was talking about, because like it reminded me of the fact that this pit and these like different like or like way that we're arranging the floor, that like everybody's talking about different ways of like how we should view like combat. And it's like, hey, if we look back through history, there's literally stone built things that they decided was the best way to watch people fight and die. Like I feel like that the way we're going in the community towards the pit and towards like putting people down below and like the amphitheaters of Rome, I mean, they had this stuff figured out, dog. Like we've been fighting each other for eons. Like I think that like the I like the idea of like containing people inside those pits and creating the like the spectacle of like a pitched seating is just so much. And that was a complete side note, I guess. Now that I think about it, we weren't even on this topic, but like and just getting the room involved, like where the room, like that's what I liked about the PGF with the couches and having the people closer. I think that I don't know if we're talking about doing this or anything, but like, and maybe with a safety aspect, but like pitching the couches up like to where they're like tiered, I think would be a good move. But like, I've liked that trend that everybody's going towards because it's just easier to view that way, looking down as opposed to looking up.
I
Because
just
I'm kind
worry
of
about it.
revisiting what you were talking about. What?
Don't worry about it if it's elevated anymore, then that's just going to be something to trip into and fall into, unless there's some kind of like barrier.
You're talking about in the couch setup?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, we did have we had PJ and Andy end up,
At least
three couches.
yeah, and they kind of move and slide at the very least instead of you may trip into
Yeah,
a
I heard somebody.
riser.
Did you say this on somebody's show that like maybe bolting the couches down might be a move?
Yep, something like that.
So
Dude, I'm
yeah,
telling you, I keep saying it, and there has to be some like what elegant way to do it, but you could maybe have some of that like soft play stuff, like the playground, like soft
yeah,
things like they sit
yeah.
on this that kind of stuff that would look cooler than just like whatever that could work. That way, if people did hit it, it wouldn't hurt as much, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. Like in my mind, when you say that, like I almost see like a set of like American Gladiators and like some of the stuff they used to use and like that kind of thing. But now you're getting into ridiculousness. But I mean, they have an entire. Did you know that they have an entire league like tag? You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
hell yeah.
So like, have you like the way that they build those? Like,
That
I feel
shit's
like that
crazy, son.
there's a way. Dude, it's wild. It is insane. Like
Crazy.
I feel like my knees blow out once an episode of watching those or watching these guys like dive underneath stuff and things like that. I'm like, dude.
That's so funny. It made me think about it too. It's like Charlie and my daughter were talking to her about this something the other day. She was talking about playing with somebody. I was like, well, what do y'all do? She was like, well, I chase them and then they chase me. And I was like, all right, I guess that's fun.
Simple enough. Hey, you can go pro in that now. So
Right.
hey.
Go for it. Here, let me put your obstacle up real quick. Juke that thing real quick and then tag them.
Yeah, I remember when I was probably like, I guess I was like 13, 14 years old. I discovered parkour videos on the internet. And like for a brief time, I thought I wanted to like really get into parkour running, and then I realized that that required to be a good runner, and I'm not.
And an acrobat.
I was kind of acrobatic around that time. Like I could do backflips and stuff when I was in my teens, and I could almost dunk until my junior year of high school. I was told if I didn't gain 20 pounds, I wouldn't see the football field. And so I was like, yeah. So I just like shoveled food in my mouth and like lifted weights. I gained 20 pounds, but all that meant was that I got fat.
Nice.
So it just slowed me down. And so that's about the time that I lost the like acrobat aspect of my life. Of like I stopped being able to do backflips and all that things. And then like that just went away. I can still do backflips and do like acrobatic stuff like over water or into water, but I never came back around to where I could like confidently do. I can do a cartwheel. Is that considered acrobatic?
I mean, I did that in the Savannah Bananas like dance thing. I count that as my acrobatics.
Okay. All right. Well,
So-
I'm somewhat acrobatic.
They
then.
listen. They were surprised. That's another. I guess we didn't talk about that either. But that's a fun thing that had happened. We went. I got to go out onto the field during the Bananas game. That was between PGF and CJI.
Okay.
So yeah. So I won the little dad dance off out there in front of 5,000 people. Also. So I was just like I was on a high. I was like I was untouchable going into this thing. It was like
you were out here just dominating the world.
anything. I was
Getting
like
selected.
I was like, do y'all need a show? Do y'all need help? Put me in. I'll make a play. Just put me in. I can make a play. And I don't even know where I'll be at. You just tell me where you need to play at, and I'll show up and do it.
And you're out here making plays.
Yeah. So cartwheel, front roll, couple sprawls, about 3, I think. And you leave it up for interpretation.
This was for a dance, or were you just doing stunts?
It was called the dad bod dance off, right? So they see your boy. I got this sleeper build. I think that's what the kids call it.
Okay. And so I'm just trying to figure out, like, so if you were going to make like a TikTok dance instructional for this dance,
yep,
what like it would just be cartwheel, front roll, sprawl,
simple sprawls. Yeah,
simple sprawls.
Like
okay,
sprawls.
Do you do that on repeat? What song's playing, or is this across the board?
Oh God, I think so. It was only the one song. And it was like you had like 15 seconds or whatever, right? So it's just
okay.
It's like it's a dance battle, but you just get one shot at it, right? And so it was a bit, it's a bit, and so they get out there. There was 4 of us, and so like they get us out there, and right before we go out, they're talking, and they're like, "What do can any of you guys like really dance?" And oh, for sure, bro. For sure, I got
that's what I'm saying. Like, I think we just started a new TikTok trend. If we can see this,
yeah, I must not have been paying attention because I did this. Yeah, I do.
Well,
stuff.
I mean, we weren't here. Like this is off. This is off in your like.
This is my real
side.
Life. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
This is off on your side quest.
Yeah, I just been chasing side quests for a couple of years, man. I stopped for a while and started trying to make money, and that made me sad. So now. Chasing
back on the side quest.
It's the life for me, man.
I feel you. I
can't plan for anything. It makes me sad.
You can plan for side quests. Planning for side quests is fun.
That's it. But yeah, so like can any of you guys kind of dance? And I was like, no, and the other guys were like, no. like, okay, well, we need one guy to take their shirt off, just whoever,
Bert
and
Kreischer in it out here.
yeah, it's just
Yeah, yeah.
that's the cheap pop, right? Especially if
Oh,
you're a little
right, 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 right.
if you're a chubby guy, older dude, you
Hit
pull
him
the
with the
shirt off,
slap.
and look, and
Yeah.
it's like a prop. You can like Petey Pablo around your head, you can like ride the pony with that thing or something.
Some would call it a crutch.
Yeah, you could do
Yeah, okay.
whatever, right? And so this other guy, he immediately took that one, and I didn't want it. I was like, I got better. I'm better than that. You know what I mean? I can't. I'm gonna have to do something
lowbrow.
else. Yeah, yeah. And we're sitting there, and they're like, well, what do you think you want to do? And I was like, I think I'm just gonna hit a cartwheel, and I'm just gonna go with it. And they're like, what? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start with like a cartwheel.
The whole thing.
And send it. And they said, you did sign the waiver, correct? And then so I took that personally. Again, sleeper. They didn't know what they had in front of them out here. So I hit them with that textbook skip to the cartwheel.
Okay.
That led to a beautiful technical jiu-jitsu front roll. Okay.
Okay.
I used my break fall to technical stand up, flash the woo, hit them with a couple of sprawls. So I know what they are going to think I'm doing when they see me sprawling a couple of different times. I'm defending these shots from this imaginary, banana man or whatever out there that's trying to get me. But they think I'm doing some kind of sexual thing, I think. Or actually, some people thought I was doing the worm.
I was fixing to say, like, maybe you could feed it into the worm a little bit. That was one of my go-tos back in the back in the school days.
Listen, art's for the interpreter to decide. You just like what you see. You know what I mean? That's all that really matters. I don't care what they thought it was. I knew, I'm just making the art. I can't, like Rick Rubin says, you just make the art for yourself, and it is what it is. So yeah, I crushed it. Won. They loved it.
What did you get for this?
Pride.
Nice. This is like a true dad. This is a true
dad
competition.
Yeah. My kids were there. My wife was there. I got to walk out on the field at the Bananas game, and I beat these up, dude. In anything, right? You know, I'm competitive.
Yeah,
I'll die to win anything. It's like
when they asked, did you sign the waiver? You're like, give me another one. I'll sign another one. Absolutely. I'm not suing nobody.
Yeah. It's okay if I'm here for this moment. This is literally the whole reason I came, was to like perform for y'all somehow. And
don't even call the paramedics.
Just sign me up. Like I can play. Like I can play too. I mean,
I like it. I love it.
I'm not as good as these guys, I'm sure. These younger, bigger hitters. Shout out to my boy Danny Oberst out there, who helped us get in there with some tickets and stuff. He's a blue belt, I think, still maybe a purple belt by now, I'm not sure, but out of Savannah, 10 Planet Savannah, the Hitman Academy.
Okay.
Yeah, he's the homie, man. He hooked it up, and then so I accidentally just got also pulled into the thing. He didn't know that was going to happen.
That's funny.
Yeah, I was literally just sitting there when the dude came and got me and was like, hey, would you want to do this? And I was like, man, you literally came to the right place, bro. You picked the winner, because like they said, each guy had to pick who they thought would do it, or whatever.
Yeah.
So they had 4 like of their employees or whatever. And so the guy was like, I'm ready. I'm ready. This is literally
they just looked at you on their little on their little camera, and they were like looking at you, and they were like, that guy will do it. That, like, you were just sitting there studying it, and they just saw the seriousness in your eyes, and they knew you were there to compete.
So yeah, I'm ready. If you got whatever they need to put me in, I can do it.
I feel like to promote this show and to promote like the next few tiers, that like we need to start like some Instagram or TikTok dance trends with you. Like we need to get you dancing on TikTok.
See, I don't know, man. That's the thing. It's like,
that's such an untapped market that I feel like you could have, especially with this story.
It's tough. It's like, I don't know. It'd have to be something. I'd have to figure it out. Maybe
I feel like you could come up with your own original dances and just do those. Like I'm not saying like you do trendy dances. I'm saying you start trends.
No, I know. That's what I'm saying. That sounds absurd.
But very
But
realistic.
obviously, that's probably what's going to be the thing that would make me rich if I did it. Probably
Maybe.
in the
At this
dumbest
point,
possible way. It's
I'm
like,
willing to push anybody over the edge.
why? It's like, I spend all my time trying to be this sophisticated, well educated, trained martial artist, and it's like, no, y'all don't even want to hear me. You just want to
Gotta go
dance.
out here and do a little ditty on.
I know what Andre was
can
talking
you
about
say that
now.
anymore?
No, you don't want to do a ditty.
Yeah, I was gonna say you don't want to do that anymore.
Yeah.
Man, that's the first time publicly I've had to catch myself on something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I apologize to the
That's like-
people.
That's a pause.
That's a pause. Yeah, that's definitely a pause.
But yeah, dude. So like that, just I guess to circle it all in again is just like just been doing a lot of stuff, man, and like
Yeah,
trying to figure out what's important and staying on that stuff. My kids are growing up and have things and they want to talk and hang out, and while they want to talk and hang out, I want to talk and hang out with them because man, it's only that short amount of time. If you talk to anybody
Yeah.
that is a parent, they'll tell you the same things. And so just trying to do the best job with that. This is my first time, that I've been a parent. This is my first time being a business owner, first time, doing all these different things that we're doing. And everybody, this is our first time.
Do you know how to Dougie?
No, I can look it up probably and do it though.
I bet you we could do a Dougie instructional by Stephen Aiken.
I feel like that's from back in the day, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Let me teach you how to Dougie. Let me teach you how to Dougie. No,
okay.
You don't know how to Dougie?
I probably do. I just don't remember. Because I was back during my drinking period. So yeah, I forgot where I was at with other stuff. Yeah, just happy to be doing things and
doing stuff and moving around. And I mean, we got PGF coming up in what, 11 days?
Yeah. And so doing that is giving me a lot, and sort of, not having to feel like I need to do too much. I felt like there was definitely a time where I was like needing to do everything. If anything was an opportunity that if somebody offered and anything almost, I felt like I had to do it because I wasn't getting a lot of opportunity prior. And so there's that whole thing of like, man, well, here they are. I got to take it while it's there.
Feast or famine.
Yeah. And
mentality. Yeah.
And that's just been the nature of the game, though, as somebody who fought and, did that for a while. That was really, the way it was. And so, yeah, now just figuring out it's going to be cool, better, steady, better, chill, better, relaxed and not so pressured to, find the time. There's no such thing as balance, right? But find the time to step on the gas, but then also find the appropriate time to slow down and sit outside and disconnect from everything and just listen to the birds or what whatever and do all that kind of stuff. Take your kids to the park or to the beach or whatever. Just be at home at night and whatever, stuff like that. It's just like that's really like that's what's winning now, and not having to be out there doing something all the time to need to be fulfilled, like I think I'm content in a way that I don't think I ever have been. And maybe that was a little scary at first, too used to dealing in like chaos.
That contentment feels like type of thing. Yeah.
I think that one time, it's like, man, I think sometimes we don't know what it feels like to win.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And so, yeah, it's been great to kind of have that mindset of like, no, we're winning and not always winning. Not everything's going to be a win, but overall everything is a win. We're winning,
Well, I think sometimes like in the like struggle of things, and especially like every kind of walk of life has some sort of aspect of this, but like when we talk about like winning is that like the winning and the losing feels the same on day 2. Is it like you got to do the same thing? You got to turn around and keep doing the thing, or you got to keep moving forward, or decide what's not working and decide to go another direction. Like you have to make all the same decisions. It's just that like however you feel about those decisions are like inside your own head different because of however this thing went in your head. So like a win or a loss, it's like you're moving forward either way. So like it feels the same to me that I've seen, is that like it's like, oh well, now we got to figure out what the next move is, and that's always going to be the next thing. And so it's like wherever you can find that homeostasis where you can just keep doing the thing that makes you happy and that like gets you that fulfillment, well then that's the success that you're looking for. And then like whatever that looks like on the tail end, well, it's gonna be more wins than it is losses, because statistically, if you're moving forward and you're trying to make things work and do the stuff, then it's going to work out. And then that's I think that's where I walked away with that sentiment, because at some point during like my last like year, you'd see those talks and you'd see those like posts about people where people go like, well, just act like everything's going to be okay, and then it'll just be okay because it's going to be. And you know, from a cynical point, when you're in the midst of something that's not okay, it's like, what the how do you come up with that? Like, no, how do you feel that way? Well, because it's going to. Everything moves and everything's going to be bad, it's going to be good, it's going to be that, but you just got to like keep clipping it forward and making the choices that you can live with and be happy with, you know. And I think that that's been something that I took away from a lot of the like most recent like 6-8 months to a year.
Yeah, man. And I think a lot of those things are, learning, one, how to communicate as everybody, and then two, learning maybe when someone is not communicating in good practice with you, or if the things they're not being, reciprocal or whatever it is, and it's not right or good for you to not feel the need to change it, or to even stay into it or dig it, whatever it is, just to just to let it go, and let things kind of be, and realize everything's not for you, and dude, you can just let people be wrong sometimes.
That's something interesting that was that used to be a mantra that you said a lot, like when I first met you, was that like it's okay for them to be wrong. I didn't quite understand that until a little bit further in, and the more and more that like really the more and more I taught, and the more that I taught and was like around people that taught, that like there's sometimes that it's just like let them believe what they need to believe. Like it's totally okay.
Eventually the delusion will come through, and they'll eventually be right, maybe, if it's something like that, or the truth will come out in practice, or in, something they'll do, that they'll get shown.
Or their truth can be different than mine.
That's what I'm saying. Truth being like, you'll see that, okay, whatever it is like, oh, they didn't even. And so this can kind of go into this. Okay, so this is like another topic, I guess, along those same lines, in that way right here. Like I got into a lot of this stuff because I wanted to help people. I wanted to be able to help people do better as a coach, as like a person, and all those kinds of things like that. And that's definitely what what it is about for me in a lot of ways. But sometimes people don't want your help.
Yeah. They don't want anybody's help. Yeah.
They may not say that. They may ask for your help, but they don't want your help. They don't really want your help. And you can't make them accept your help or the truth if it's not what they are wanting to do, even if they know that it's true. If it's like you said, they can make it their own truth, and it can be whatever. Or on the opposite side of that, it's like there's maybe like a little bit, scared of, of like a savior complex.
Yeah.
It's like, let them do it themselves. They don't need, like, if they're not asking for it, then they don't need it. You don't have to go give it to somebody. You don't have to be doing it if they're not asking for it, even if you know that it's needed, if you know it's right. If they're not doing, if they're not trying to do it themselves, then you doing it for them doesn't help them either. Honestly, it just makes it longer before the truth comes out to them, and it's probably going to be a greater fall if you're not, like,
because it sucks for you too. Yeah.
It's accountability in a lot of ways, and I've dealt with this some, to where I thought that by not saying stuff to someone in a time uh, that maybe they were already going through something. So it
Hmm.
was like, all right, I'm going to let this kind of pass, and we'll bring it up at another time or whatever. But then by that time, stuff has kind of changed, and they
Right.
feel a different way now, and you know, see it as, well, you didn't do this thing, you didn't tell me this. And it was like,
Mhm.
well, you were already dealing with something else, and I didn't want to pile on to you. But
Yeah.
then me trying to save them from any more trouble actually just made more trouble for myself
For
and for them
everybody. Yeah.
later down
Yeah.
the road, when
Yeah.
we could have
Yeah.
just said, you know, figured out what the, you know, hey, this is what I think is going on right now. Even though you're dealing with everything, like, I get it. I'm sorry that that's what it is, but this is still the truth. Also, is that
Right.
we can be compassionate for what's going on and understand what's happening. That's two different things. Is like, you know, if you're going through something, I love you, and I feel for you, and I have compassion for you. But also, if that's really doing something negative to somebody, or to me, or to the school, or to the public, or to anything like that, uh, even if I love you or whatever, I can't just like let it be. Like, you need
Yeah.
to understand that, or you need to know that, you know, and not say like illegal or whatever, but just like, you know,
Yeah. No. Yeah.
outside of your character, or outside of my character, or outside of the social structures of the group that we have, you
Right.
know, and things like that. And so sometimes I feel like that's a thing that happens, and so you wait until something's a big problem before people start
And
talking.
then
It's
it's
too
a
late.
yeah,
It's
then
too
it's
late.
not a discussion anymore, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that, you know, well, you did this, you did that, and you did this, and you did that. When the intention during
Right.
either one of those times is like, well, when that happened, my intention was, well, you didn't. And so now I did this.
Mhm.
Well, you did this back. Well, my intention was because I thought you did. It's like, okay, so if we would have just gotten each other's intentions down in the beginning, you didn't. Okay, you weren't intending to be that way, but this was the consequence of what happened. So
Right.
had you just said that up front, I could have at least like took that in, or had I, you know,
Right.
said to you, hey, I think, you know, what's happening is wrong, you know, then maybe you could have said, well, I'm doing this because you made me mad, or you did something, you know, whatever. And then it's like, oh shit, maybe I didn't know that too.
Yeah.
And so that gives me a chance to reflect and say back you know, sorry to you, or try to fix that in that way, or otherwise you just stay resentful forever over
Well, and
that
that's,
perceived
like
slight.
yeah, and somebody recently I had somebody say that, like, you can't expect yourself out of everybody else, and you can't, like so, like, you can't expect, like, some things that, like, you might be dwelling on for days and months and months and months and months, they might not even thought about.
They never thought about it.
It never even crossed their mind because they don't have the same experiences, they don't
Mhm.
have the same thought processes, they don't have the same thing, so, like, it may not have even crossed their mind, the thing that's been bothering you for 6 months, and so,
Yep.
like, that's where you're talking about, like, communication is, like, that thing of, like,
Had no
you gotta
patience.
open up
Yeah.
and say,
Yep.
it's, not necessarily in the same vein as what this meaning is, but, like, it's always one of those, like, closed mouths don't get fed, or, like,
Mm.
like, you have to, like, speak and, like, understand, because if that person, because that's the thing too, is that, like, they may be dwelling on something that you may not have even thought about or anything like that, so, like,
Right.
opening that, like, door gives the opportunity for a two-way street.
Yeah. And that's definitely been something, you know, like, I've been working on and with
Yeah.
for the last while, because that's not something I've done great. You know, I've realized that was something in my life, that I protected people's feelings is what I thought I was doing, or people that I could loved and cared about. I could see that they were doing things to other people, or with other people, that I thought was not good, but they were always good to me, and didn't had done stuff to me yet in that
Mhm.
way. But then, what, you know, it comes around and it's like, oh shoot, okay, that was happening. I just didn't see it because I was, you know, blinded by my friendship or whatever to you,
Mhm.
and loyalty to whatever we had kind of had, you know. And so it's just a lot, you know what I mean? Trying to be a good person is a lot of different things, you know, and that's really just what I want to try to do, is just to try to be a good person. I'm not necessarily needing to be a hero or anybody's savior or whatever, but I do want to be able to try to help people. And I do want to, like, if somebody needs something, I'd like to be able to get it for them, because that's just, again, that's just been from my life experience, something that's important for me.
Yeah.
Is, people that help people are in my eyes are the highest kind of form of people or whatever, and realizing that sometimes though, in order to help people, you got to take stuff, you got to be able to get things, to be able to get them to give to other people.
You can't fill cups
You
with an
can't.
empty pitcher.
Yeah, if you want to be able to donate millions of dollars, you got to be able to get it.
You need millions of dollars to donate millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you could be out, all those things, but unless you're, there's some actionable stuff to it,
Yeah.
it's not really like the right thing. And so, yeah, just kind of figuring out a lot of those kind of things too. Again, navigating a lot of these new avenues and life things in the last several years has been pretty crazy.
Right.
And it's been fun though to figure it out. Not saying always fun, but like just again realizing, like, a lot of the stories or a lot of the old cliches are that for a reason. And
Yeah, and I mean, how frequently in these last 2 years have you been able to take that step back and take the breath? Like, I've told this story online, and I've told the story multiple times about me and Brandon being at your camp in Costa Rica, and we're standing on this beautiful beach. People are doing jiu-jitsu next to us. We're sitting there, and like he's like, if you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing right this second? And kind of look around and be like, something a lot like this. And it's like, huh. So,
Weird, right?
what are you in the hurry to get? Like, what are you in the hurry to get to? You're here, you're there. So all the rest falls into place. Like, so like in these last few years, like you've had a couple chances, like take a breath and look around, and like, what has that been like?
And so that's the thing, is like doing that has been
A challenge.
Well, it's been hard to settle.
Okay.
And I say that in a way that it seems like that word has a negative connotation in a lot of ways. It's just to like, and maybe you shouldn't settle, but just like to, I don't know. I feel like there should always not, I don't know, except that there doesn't always have to be more, that it doesn't always have to be bigger or better, or not necessarily not better, but just,
Yeah.
not always better. More is not always the right thing.
I feel you. Yeah.
And like with Costa Rica, like that specific year that you're talking about down there, we had tons and tons of people.
Right.
And I realized then that I was a little, not a little, I was very overwhelmed with the
something that size.
responsibility, of that, and the different personalities. And not that anybody was wrong, but just the way that I'm a little protective of people, and the people that were with me, I was really worried about a lot of people and what they were or were not doing. And if, like there were a lot of like ladies down there that were single, and were they out by, by themselves somewhere or whatever, was that my responsibility to care? What is the real, just like a lot of things like that you didn't really kind of think about maybe before then, and it was hard to know until we got there that it was a problem, and
there's all
like
these
that.
different liabilities and all these things that fall at your feet because, well, you're the boss. And so like these are now your responsibilities. Yeah.
And so part of that thing, like we talked about a ton, is like being like the one in charge of everything. Like it just falls to you a lot of times. And then, the hard part is like, it's like you're going to go through tons and tons of people a lot of times until you get the people that are going to be consistently the ones that do the thing with you and like do the other work for you without you having to make it stand there and tell everybody what to do all the time, or have it like in there.
Part of that is like learning how to like be structured. I mean, it's the thing that you like, you go to like real jobs or like real like those like that world, like there's certain structure and things that like they're in place for a reason. It's like here recently we've started using one of these like calendars or whatever amongst like me and like Keelan's on there and like all the people like PGF. Brandon's deep off in that world to where like it integrates into our calendars and everything. And like one of the nice parts about that is that like it's another layer of communication to where like I don't have to call Keelan to know what he's working on. I can just look at his calendar and go, oh, I can help in this, and I can help in this, and I can help in this. Like it gives so much more like
and that's kind of
structure.
In a way, what I think it is in a way is that people, you know, wanting to do the work though too. Sometimes it's like
Yeah,
not always. That's what, you know. This isn't nothing, but like there's people that and I've been guilty of this part of it. Is like you want the result,
not the work.
but once you realize all the work that it takes to get the result, maybe it's not worth it to you.
Yeah,
Then,
there's some
you
people
know.
that would like they don't want to put in the work. That's the
And
day.
so that's
The
kind of what I'm saying
knots.
about the 40 to 50 person camps down there for me is like that's too
Right.
much work for me. Now, did we make a little money? Yeah, I think so, but not really because we had to pay for all the mats. So that was like good because now we own mats, but they're in Costa Rica. So now we got to keep doing it, which is great because we get to keep doing it. But now we got to keep doing it.
Yeah.
or we just
Yeah.
bought a bunch of mats and left them down there for one time for a good time.
Yeah.
So they're scaling it back and trying to figure out, you know, what it should be and, you know, not needing it to be a 40, 50 person thing to where it's just a logistical kind of nightmare. And then like understanding, okay, then maybe we should provide these things instead of allowing that part to be open, because if we do that, it makes it actually much more easy for everybody else. It probably costs less overall, and
Yeah.
it'll just make the experience better for them and for us. And so we just didn't know that until we did it a few times
Yeah.
and like
Yeah.
thought about it, you know, it was like, oh, this actually, okay, we didn't know this was a possibility, you know, and like, dang. And so, I mean, everything, kind of like you said, everything we've done is grassroots, man. It's like, you know, just
Right.
trying to figure it out and like just going after it with like relentless, you know, pursuit of whatever it is, you know. And so like, yeah, just learning again. Like it's not, it doesn't need to be bigger.
Yeah.
It's fine. And like you said, if I can look around down there at that camp anytime that I'm down there doing it, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
You've done the thing. It's like I keep seeing this where like I know it's the algorithm that like drops this stuff in front of you, but it's like you keep seeing these things where it's like, you know, you prayed for whatever you have, or like you hoped for what you have. And that's like, well, if you're trying to live in the present and you're trying to, well, at some point you had hoped to have where you're sitting. So it's like, appreciate where you're sitting in the present, because you made this, whether consciously or unconsciously, this was your goal. And so like, you should observe that. And if you don't like where you're sitting, then that means that subconsciously you weren't doing the things to put you where you're trying to be. And so that's the whole like being present thing. It's kind of weird when that all comes together, right?
It is, man. And that's why I say it takes stopping sometimes and,
Yeah.
and smelling the roses, so to say, and like just really slowing down and like taking stuff away and then see what you miss.
Yeah.
You know, that's
Absence makes the heart grow fonder or whatever.
That's sort of been what I've been doing with this thing and like a lot of other things too. Is just like if I take it away, what happens? Do I miss it? Does anybody miss it? Does anybody ask about it? Did it? So then maybe that was just something that I was imagining needed, you know, to be done more, you know, or it wasn't helping me any.
I've had multiple people ask me out in public and out in the community whether or not you and I were coming back online.
Yeah, me too.
It might be the two people that are in here right now, but we're back on the internet.
I've had them and a couple other people too.
Yeah,
you know, it's been a lot. And I think, you know, and here to say it again is like this isn't gonna be a typical like jiu-jitsu show where we come on and talk about all the current events and like this match and that match all the time.
Right.
There'll be stuff of that. But this is gonna be more like life and talking and chilling with the homies and, you know, figuring out what's going on and whatever. And then we may try to say something sometimes, but I that's what kind of got to me last time is it felt like everything started becoming that. And I think that was just me maybe feeling like I was doing too much. Like I think
you were too close to all the other parts of everything that we were doing, because like that was also the way that it was in, because we were in that mode in the PGF. Like we were in sales mode of like, we got to get somebody to buy on this. Like, exactly. Yeah. Which I am learning. And like there's somebody is doing that at every level of this all the way up to the top, but not necessarily is it always the talent. But the other thing that I'm learning as this goes along is the more people you put between you and that process, the more that you have to give up either creative control or something. Like there's a trade-off every time when you start talking about that. Right. So like I think that like something like this where we're headed and what we're doing is that, like you said, like telling people like this is going to be an organic conversation. We happen to do jujitsu. We happen to be around some of the top levels of jujitsu. We happen to, that's part of our world. So that'll be part of the conversations. Mm-hmm. But a lot of this, I think, is some of the lessons that we're taking away from that and that's grown and like how it's become what it's become.
And which I think is what's more important.
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's what's more important. I've got a guy recently who's been, who signed up at the school. He's like 55. Did a couple classes and was like, man, that's too much. Like I want to do some private lessons or whatever. And you know how I am.
Yeah.
That it's got to be worth it. And that doesn't even mean monetarily necessarily. It does, but you know,
but it's got to benefit you and them, like them as well.
They got to actually want it, you know, and like want to do it and not just come and hang out with me for an hour or whatever it is. And so that's why you got to make it expensive enough that way.
Well, and even to some extent, it doesn't matter who you are. Like if you go do privates with the best guy in the world, but you never actually like experience the communal aspect of how learning jiu-jitsu goes, I believe that like you can't become a world champion just doing that, or even really get monetarily good.
But then that's the point. Is like,
it's why are you doing it?
Yeah, he's 55.
He's not trying to be world champion. I caught myself as I said that.
Right. Yeah. And so that's the biggest thing we all talk about. That is like we all are like in this like narrow-minded focus all the time about,
are you trying to get good? Yeah.
Like yes, but at what level? What is that?
Or are you just trying to be able to play at a good level? Yeah.
And so we talked.
Man, that's really good. That's deep.
We talked and we agreed on a rate, and you know he's coming twice a week for an hour, twice a week, which is a lot. For one-on-one time, I feel like. And maybe other people be like, oh God, I did privates for whatever. So that's cool. Good for you. You probably got really good from that if you had a good instructor. But literally like taking him basically from zero to wherever we're going. And it's literally all centered on what I think first, and then, you know, base it off of where he's at and where he's going. He said this to me, and this was an interesting thing. He's like, I'm not going to have an opinion until we've done 20 hours.
That's smart.
He's like, I'm going to just try to do whatever you're telling me to do, and I'll ask you questions to understand, but I'm not going to have an opinion about anything until we've done 20 hours. But after 20 hours, I'll be able to guess if you're full of shit, or I'll be able to know if what you're telling me is pretty good, or I'll have an opinion about what I'm doing and why I would do it in certain scenarios. And it's like, that's cool. I think that's great. And I'm okay with that, because I think that's a strong issue with lots of jiu-jitsu now, especially in that group setting class.
Yeah.
It's the modern thing to where it's very me centered, and it's about me and my journey and what I want to do, and I like this, and I'm gonna hit this, and I'm gonna do that. In a group class, that doesn't work.
Right? No, because it's got to be a we, and it's got to be a generalized.
And this is what we're doing today as a group, or
this is what happens. Yeah,
mat. We have like an open lab, whatever,
as opposed to an exploratory, like what works for you. Oh, that you can't put your leg in that position. So, or how do we modify it? Yeah.
I tell you, you know, something, and you say, well, I want to do this other thing instead right here. And it's like, well, I think it's better if you would use this instead of that, you know. But then you don't do it. Like in that group class, that's easier to get by with. Like you can just say yes sir or whatever, and then just kind of when I turn my back and walk off or whatever, just keep doing whatever you were doing. And I see that a lot, and in my mind I'm like, are you just completely ignoring me, what I just said, and don't care, or do you just not get it? Like
Oh, that's
maybe you
like
don't
showing
get it.
somebody how to hit a punch, and you're and they're like this, and you're like, no, like this, and then you're like, okay, do it again, and they do it again, and they do it exactly how they did it the first time, and you're like, are you listening?
Or just like in jujitsu, there's certain patterning that
Mm,
you can get into. And if you disconnect or if you change this and don't do that, then you just changed it all. It's
the
not gonna
whole
be,
thing. Yeah,
of
yeah,
course,
yeah.
it's just gonna be different. It
Yeah.
doesn't make one thing right or wrong or maybe even better or worse per se. It's just it's a different thing. And as the teacher, sometimes I'm teaching you this thing right now.
Yeah.
You can take it when it's your own free time or when you're competing or rolling or whatever it is and do with it what you will. But I need you to understand it from this aspect. And then also, if you're not doing it, then your partner's not getting reps on the opposite end of it where they're getting to feel what happens when you do
The
this thing
proper
also.
reaction and
Because
the
now
yeah.
they're like, oh, well, this must not be the thing. We can just do whatever we want to do. Whereas for him, now we've done some break falls. And at first he was like, what? And then we did some rolling, and then he was like, "What?" Like front and back rolls or whatever, just not like like I
Yeah.
didn't kind of get it or whatever. Um, then we did some hand fighting a little bit. We've had about 8 lessons I think so far, uh, and some pummeling,
Okay.
right? And then we did a little bit of like takedown kind of drilling stuff
Okay.
so far, and he's he's getting it because he's staying on this specific path. And when he shows up every day or whatever, the first part of it is just a review of what we did last time.
Like a recap and then
And then once
feeds
he
into the
shows
next thing.
that, if he's got that, then we just keep going right away.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
some of that's not quite perfect, we stop. We talk about it.
Yeah.
So like,
Do you think that like might be a trend that starts coming in? Is that like because I feel like that some of the weaknesses that the like as a community we're starting to get is coming from like what you're talking about of like being such a big community and being big classes, like original martial arts, like your master, like you trained directly with like your master, and that was like a one-on-one relationship. Like, do you think that like maybe we might see a trend of that coming back? Because I kind of like the way you're talking this through, but then at the same time, I came up in the team era where like your team was what made you, and like the bodies you trained with, and if you had enough bodies. But now I'm getting to the age that the more bodies mean more is risk, and more people that I could possibly get injured that I'm training with. I'd much rather train with a small core group versus like 82 killers. You know.
yeah, I think there's something to that too, and I think having more bodies, meaning more people, is one way to look at it. But I think when people say that, they look at it again. Everybody is the wrong like idea.
Yeah.
Really is what they're thinking. That's like more people for me to battle with, but it's
Right.
more people to
Right.
like spar wits with, more people to get ideas from, more people to listen to and learn from, rather than
More
it
of on the
is
logical side of things versus
yes,
the
rather than just
like
like I'm gonna go out here and fucking throw down with this tall guy because I need
yeah,
to know how to fight tall guys.
yeah, yeah,
It's like no, you need to learn how to strategically
and learn what his strategy is and
what
how
do
he
they do.
uses his length, and
You touch
then
them, what hey,
yeah,
ask 'em, literally a conversation even. Ask them, "What do hey, what when if I did this right here, what would you do?"
how would you play it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Or, "Hey, you got me with this right here. What was that?"
and start playing the chess game rather. Like you said, like there is merit, and there are people that get good that way of locking horns every day, but like it's a diminishing return. And you can only get so good, and eventually the knee
There's a
blows
cap.
out, the hip,
There's a cap
like
for sure.
yeah, something happens, and then you can't do that anymore. So
And
to
so
early on develop that skill to be able to like verbally spar and like learn how to like, and even just the touching each other and the role, and like you get it being more of a
and that
exchange
it's a
rather than a
dance.
battle.
It's a
Yeah.
dance. It's a dance. Jiu-jitsu is a
Mm.
dance. It's not wrestling. It's not that.
Mm.
And so a lot of people wanna wrestle. A lot of people wanna grapple. And even in no gi, you can do jujitsu as a philosophy, I think. Um, this shit's defense.
Mm.
You're not walking
at the
in,
core of it.
kicking in the door, and dragging
Yeah.
somebody down into jujitsu. Now, if
Yeah.
you have to
Yeah.
do that, you can use your jujitsu if you're like somebody that has to do stuff or whatever. Of course, like that's what it is, right? But like I thought jujitsu was self-defense. And self-defense starts and ends with you didn't do shit first. You didn't start it.
Right.
Right. And that doesn't mean you can't initiate contact or whatever once it gets to a certain distance management or whatever, but it starts and ends with that. And I counter your energy is what that is. The gentle art. It
At
doesn't,
the
it's
core of
yeah,
the
it's not, it doesn't mean that I can't hurt you. It just means that it's yielding, like Brandon says a lot, it's the yielding art. It's like I let you go first. And I just get behind you, which is the highest form of jujitsu, is taking your back.
Right. So as
Right.
long as I'm in that
I wait.
realm.
And that's the thing, is like the sports stuff. And this was one of the things I was going to say too. It kind of has been a reoccurring like thing that's popped up in meditation for me a lot. Is we're creating a different sport.
Mm.
This isn't,
Yeah.
and it's been said already too, but this is a different sport now. Jiu-jitsu is no time limits. Jiu-jitsu is no referees. Jiu-jitsu is no rules almost. to a
Survival.
degree. It's about making it out of the fight alive
with the least amount of damage on you as
taking
possible.
the most efficient way possible.
Yeah.
The sport asks you to do more. And so
Yeah.
that's already happened in one evolution from the original kind of idea to
what we have
when
now.
it became the sport, and now to where we're narrowing it down even further to make it
an entertaining sport and a watchable sport versus just sport. Because just sport still has like a lot of the raw same things, but like when it becomes like, well, now if I'm just trying to beat you at the game, I can be really boring.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like we changed the rules of the game where you have to be exciting in the game. That's a whole nother, and that's this new evolution that's coming. Exactly. Yeah. And so where you catch the Andrew Tackett's doing a front flip to take somebody's back.
It's turning it over. Right. Yeah. If you know, you think about everything, the balance or the upside down of it all, is like if you had like regular classical jiu-jitsu or whatever, it's like this would be the forced opposite version of that, to where you get in here and you get after it. And if you're in a bad position, you don't get to wait. You don't get to stall out for 6 minutes and make the match end on a draw because you got to survive underneath somebody who also was just holding you down for 6 minutes because there was no incentive necessarily for them to do anything else. Because that's the right thing to do, is to not move, is to mount you and pin your arms and like, just hold you until you die or give up. Or
but then I saw a couple of times where Brandon said this in the rules meeting when we were talking about the the bottom guy being the onus on him, is the fact is like, sorry man, don't end up in that bad position. Like if you're in such a bad position that you have to shell up, obviously something went wrong.
My philosophy has changed a ton since doing the beginning of this whole thing. Like I said, as I came into it as an athlete, my style of grappling and everything to come into it versus now what I kind of see it as, and being okay with it, you know, in that way, is like 6 minutes was not a long time.
Oh, it's so short.
It's not, but go fight somebody.
Yeah.
Go to the grocery store and pick somebody to fight. How long do those fights last?
30 seconds.
And how long does a long fight last?
2 minutes.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
People are learning to play a game to make it last longer just to get to the end of the game.
Yeah.
But you can't wait in that position forever.
Yeah. What are you waiting on?
The referee's not, there's nobody going to stand it up per se, or like, you know, you got slammed at school, dude was just holding you down, you lost that fight.
Yeah.
He didn't even have to punch you.
Just from the slam, just the slam you were on the ground.
You when it ended and somebody broke it up, you lost.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
on a very human level, we know that. We all understand that and get
Who
that.
was on top? Who was on bottom?
And
Yeah.
a lot of jujitsu has become really weird to where as long as you're spinning around in a ball, you're being very offensive, and the other person's got to
Yeah,
step
but
on
like,
top of you
so
to get
this
it going.
like
I can't kick you in the face to make you like stop doing that shit.
it's a totally different. Yeah. But at the same time too, that like so like on a
It's just
personal
different.
note,
It's just
like
different.
this weekend I was at ADCC and I competed in the absolute. And one of the like a bunch of these guys were decorated like really good black belts, so it was like, all right, I'm going into this, and they were like wrestler black belts. Like my whole goal was like, don't get put through a table. Like that was my whole goal, was like just like make it through this and like don't get through a table. So like I started playing and I played like a pretty reserved game, and I think where I really messed up was I didn't come up and wrestle up when I had the opportunities to. But like there were times that I was sitting in like a lockdown position and I'm trying to create the electric underhooks and trying to do that. And I don't even know how to describe this except to people who understand what I'm saying. Is like homeboy was a black belt. And so he knew how to just sit right at the edge to where I couldn't get up and I couldn't go back and I couldn't do anything. And then he just sat there. And I was like, all right, I understand I'm getting penalized because it looks like I'm on bottom and I'm losing, but I'm doing everything I can to make him move. And he's big and he's not playing the game with me. And so what I should have done is just wrestled up and then decided to just give him what he wanted and wrestle with him. But then it was like, now I'm going to get put through a table or I have to put him through a table. And I don't want to do that. I just wanted to play jujitsu.
Well, yeah, and see that's kind of been the argument in ways with the points game. Is like either way, guy. I've had matches lots of times back in the day where I would throw up like a triangle, and the guy would pass my guard off the triangle long enough to get the points, and then I'd immediately be able to re-guard, and then that would be all they ever did, and I couldn't get it up, get going enough to do anything. They weren't doing
the next
anything.
thing.
Yeah. So that was the knock on the points stuff. At first was like people were doing that and stalling to the end, and so then we had the submission only with Eddie. Kind of did this, and so 10-minute matches, reminiscent to the Pride rules, where you could have the long time to get after it, and like let the fight settle in and different things like that.
But then people started stalling out to the end of those.
Exactly. They learned how to game that to make it to the OT, to make it only about that short little small fight at the end, and then you have champions who never submitted anybody,
but they know how to play overtime and they can get you in a spider web and you ain't getting out type of thing. Like
and I've won and lost in overtime on matches that I've been having my ass kicked the whole entire regulation, and then got the submissions in OT or won on ride time in OT, and then the opposite's been true to where.
But that's a whole game in itself, and like each one of those are games.
Everything has its own merit, and it's just really dependent upon what you want to do, But I think again, if we're talking about entertainment, what's going to get the masses plugged in, things like that, it's gamification of things. It's things they can easily like follow, and they like
simplicity,
some type of points in a way, or something they can see, and in a way that they can follow these stories longer than like a one-off night, and then 6 months later you see him again for one night, and then 6 months later you see him again for one night.
Potentially one match or whatever. Exactly. Like you get to see them on repeat type of thing. I think that's really good.
And if you lose, you get to see what happens when they lose. You get to see what happens when they win and lose. So it's so many different things. It's just such a different kind of sport.
Yeah.
And I asked this to Davis, the other night too. It's like, what do you think will happen when this thing really blows up? And it's the way that people, we're on ESPN and stuff. What are jiu-jitsu schools going to look like?
What are they going to train for?
Because we already see the wave. He said this too, is like you already saw it was IBJJF, then everybody started training for ADCCs.
Everybody started wrestling in their rooms.
Everybody was training for ADCCs, and now they're,
now people are putting slopes in their gyms and building pits. And
Yep, exactly. So people are going to follow the trends. It is what it is. Business is business in that way. And so, we can be left behind, or we can try to evolve with what's happening, or you can do these one-off lessons with somebody, and then that's how they can get the truth, I feel like, of what this is.
I think there will be specialists ridiculous that like it'll be like worth it where people are like, I'm gonna go train with this guy because he's an ADCC guy and like I'll learn this, and there will be like, oh, this guy competed in CGI like 92 times, so like I want to go train with him because I want to like talk about strategy of how to use the wall and how to use the pit and doing all this stuff. And then but I think at the end of the day, from watching it from like a like production perspective, like that I've watched from the like from watching guys and filming guys and seeing them play the game, is that like it's gonna do what we've all as purists wanted all along. I think it's driving us closer to the submission. Is that people are more and more and more and more because maybe they're tired of leaving it up to the judges, or they don't agree with the way that the refs interpret the rules, or the this and that. Like the less time we give them, the more that they seem to get herded towards the submission.
I wonder this. I think this would be something an interesting poll or something like that thing to get. Find out what year people started training jiu-jitsu, and then find out what they were told it was supposed to be.
What they were told jiu-jitsu was supposed to be, like the gentle art pitch or whatever.
Like, you know, like we all wanted to be closer to the submission. Everybody's like the submission. You know, I'm trying to think, man.
I was brought on, it was position over submission was what was hammered.
100%. So that's what I'm saying. So I'd like to see what the year you are.
You know, okay,
what generation you are here, because there's like, you know, there's like first wave Americans, second wave Americans, or whatever.
I was the MMA wave. I was 2008, 2009, 2010. Same. Like when the MMA world was like becoming like when everybody's like, oh, we got to learn MMA, got to learn jiu-jitsu.
It's about fighting.
Yeah,
right? And it's about saving yourself in a fight.
Yeah,
you had to have jiu-jitsu because you get your ass kicked if you didn't know how
to fit. You had to, because a guy that knew jiu-jitsu could hold you down and beat you up.
A wrestler,
or a wrestler,
yeah. Every time, you know, at least you had a chance when you learned some jiu-jitsu to hang in there with those guys. It's not to say that it was like 100% better, but you at least had a chance.
Well, and I was very much opened up to early on because I was exposed to like pretty good wrestlers pretty early. Was that it was like, oh, I'm not going to learn how to wrestle better than him. He's been wrestling for 20 years already. Like I'm not going to relearn that.
So yeah, so that's a thing. Like generationally, there's people who've learned it one way, and like for me specifically, I am and was the same way, and still see that. And it's like, you know, maybe this is the way old people always are. You know, it's like
those young whippersnappers.
Back in my day, you know, it was about
there's an element of that, I think.
But I am with the shit. I'm with the future of it. I'm with the PGF. The way the rules are, it's exciting. It's fun. I like jiu-jitsu, and I like jiu-jitsu as a sport. I you know, I have conflicting philosophical things on that, but like I said, in the classroom, I can teach that, you know, because I understand the nuance personally.
The philosophical side of
it's like, because I've done both, you know, and I get it. I've been on both sides of the competition, and I've watched it a lot of times, and you know, it's the truth. It is what it is, and you've seen, dude, every end of the season, it does not matter who the guys are, if you at the top or wherever they came from, the story is always relatively about the same thing. Nobody understood. They did not think it was this. I've had stuff before. You know, I've
been in MMA fights. I've been in all these different things, and I've never been to this. They all say the same thing. Yeah.
And so whatever that is what we are. And that's what's making us special more than just jiu-jitsu and submissions. It's like I said, it's the sporting aspect to where you get to see these people play a lot.
The most recent like way that I've heard Brandon describing this in the like rules meetings, and like when he's like introducing people to the idea and like the thought process, is that like, look, we know that there's jiu-jitsu, but this is a game that I'm asking you to win with the jiu-jitsu that you know.
Right.
And so like that's where I find it more fun and the easiest way to explain it.
And that's why I have been really like trying to find influence through the Savannah Bananas thing, because they've created a new game too.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I've seen some of their marketing stuff and things like that.
And I think that's where some of that keeps sticking into my head with this, is like, we are creating a different sport.
Yeah.
It's like they're playing baseball, but they're not playing baseball the way you do, because there's different rules. And like, So like if you get a walk, you don't just to go to the base freely. You get to keep going until every player on the defense has touched the ball. So they have to throw it around to everybody first before, and you just, if they can do whatever they got to do to get that out. So there's just like little things like that.
Okay.
And so like
Gamifies it a little bit to keep everybody engaged type of
yeah,
deal.
there's like a certain time period
Yeah.
where like the game's gonna be over no matter what.
Yeah.
Drop dead. And it's like that makes it to where it's not like a 4-hour marathon game to where it's really boring and people are stretching it out. Each inning, like in baseball, is like if you go up and you have the first top of the inning, you score 3 runs, I score 0. Second inning, you score 2
Yeah.
runs, I score 1. It's 5-1. No, for them it would be 2-0. You in
Yeah.
each inning, and like that. And so then that's how
Yeah.
you win the games, is by winning innings, like by winning rounds. Kind of, it's not like a
Mm.
cumulative score. So that way, there's no like blowouts until maybe close to the end.
That's with the PGF. I think that the scoring system, like that's the easy. Like you can explain that to somebody's grandma that like has never even like they've watched a baseball game or they've watched a soccer game or a football game or a football game, or like they understand that like the points come from the fact that he beat him.
Yep,
That's
he won.
it.
He won the game. He won the round. He won the inning.
Neither one of them won the round. Nobody gets any points. Plain and simple.
Mm-hmm. And so, dude, I didn't even think about this. Like maybe I had, but I'd forgotten this like reference or whatever. But the other day, somebody even said it was like the 6 and the 3 being like football things.
Yeah. That's
like, oh my god.
That was Brandon did that on purpose.
That was really obvious.
Tell me you're a jiu-jitsu combat sports guy without telling me you're a jiu-jitsu guy. How many points did they score in that foosball?
Man, and that was the thing though. I've been talking with people a lot. It's like now, like with Thomas and being out in the world and stuff, man, I've realized,
yeah.
And it's been and I don't know, it's not, I don't want this to feel like somebody makes me feel like, people always when I say stuff sometimes they're like, oh, feel sorry or whatever it is about it. It's not really like something bad or good, or it's just observations that I've had. And sometimes people think that means something about them or the situation. It's just more of like an observation of how like stuff is in lots of ways. And now I've lost my train of thought trying to explain my train of thought.
Well, you've done a good job hanging on to your train of thought. For our first show back,
that's the ADHD.
Definitely made it in. We've made it. The ADHDs have like aligned, and we've put up, some good numbers for our first time back.
What was I saying?
It was a really good point. I'm trying to give you space for it.
Now I'm lost. What's it? Whatever. I'll remember it tomorrow.
Yeah, no, we'll just pop into your Instagram stories and give it to the people. But
yeah, so lots of stuff, learning lots
of new stuff going, lots of this stuff coming. We're back with on the interwebs, and we're sharing it with the peoples. And I've missed this conversation like this. I think that this is something that like we can get things that we've said and done, and like this used to be one of my favorite things to do. So like I'm kind of like looking forward to getting back into it. We're gonna be back again. We're gonna do this weekly. We're gonna be back Wednesday. And then we're gonna be at the PGF, so maybe we'll be roomies and we can just
we'll do it there.
Do one live from the thing. Hey, then we can have a repeat of our first. See, like this has been such tied into the history that like I'm excited to bring this back.
Just do it on the set.
Like, just doing it on the set and doing it there. So cool. Do you have any other big projects other than the PGF coming up? The only thing I can think of these days is the PGF. So
yeah, nah, man. Like I said, just really been like, focusing on like scaling stuff to manageable bites a lot. And so just focusing on the school and stuff and like the kids. I've been coaching Thomas's baseball stuff a lot and, playing with them and helping out with that kind of stuff a lot. It's been fun.
Yeah, I saw Thomas was on an interview the other day that you were posting that my man's falling right in line.
So, yeah. So that's another thing is like in for him is good, right? He doesn't get it yet, maybe even, and maybe never will for a long time, and that's great. It's okay, but I'm able to do things that give him opportunities like that.
Yeah.
And the reason that he got to do that was because I had volunteered that day to
For
come
that
out there
thing,
and help,
yeah.
and like to so I'd gotten out there early and learned some stuff from them, which was selfish, is I just wanted to learn and play with this
That's what we're
brave
here
coach.
for.
Yeah. And so then I could help my kid and my teams that I help with or whatever through them. But then he was like, "Hey, where's your kid at?" And they're there. He's like, "Hey, come over here. Let's do a little interview or whatever." So it's
That's
like,
cool.
because yeah, and so
That's cool.
it's great, man. It's like it's cool to get to see that, and it was reinforcing to like doing the right thing.
Yeah.
Doing the right
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Everything is like
Yeah.
it's pushing in the right directions, even if it's slower than initially. Like it's so much faster than I ever thought, but it's slower than I kind of hoped at one point for some of these things. But I think that's been the good part, is to slow down and like let it chill. So yeah,
Let
nothing
it
big.
sit.
We're working on maybe bringing Costa Rica at
Okay.
2025.
Hell yeah.
Just got some stuff we're trying to nail down for that again, before we again just making sure timing and everything's right, because man, I don't want to schedule this and then have PGF. They'd like schedule the same week.
Fall it on the same and having to move around. Yeah. Yeah.
There's
Yeah. I
another
feel that.
CGI and like people are there. It's
Yeah.
like, that's been a problem with some of this stuff too. Is like I just we're scheduling against a bunch of other things because we had
Yeah.
this idea and now everybody else has these ideas.
Yeah.
And there was
Yeah.
no competition, and now there is competition. And
Yeah.
there's
And then some of it's not competition, but you don't want to be pulling away. And then like,
yeah, and
I mean, dude, last year the jiu-jitsu community got tapped. Like there was a lot that happened over this last year for the jiu-jitsu community.
sure.
Like,
for sure.
I mean, if you went to say like half of it, I mean, you spent a good chunk just traveling to places for everything that was going on. So like, I think it's good for the community. I think the community is coming along, but like, yeah, it makes it tough when you're trying to plan.
Well, I think it's just better to keep it at a smaller scale too. Keep
Yeah,
it a
that too.
little easier
Yeah.
that way. That way you don't have to worry about pushing so hard to have such a big thing. Then those events like that don't really affect it.
Yeah.
It's because these people probably aren't worried about that event. That's why they've already scheduled this with you,
Yeah.
or whatever kind of stuff like that. And again, the only reason that happened is because, man, it happened. I had no clue that shit was going to ever happen that big, and so it just was what it was, and now it is what it is, and time to parlay some of this other stuff that we're doing and like funnel it all into one like kind of thing again, now that I think I've taken away what I didn't really like about a lot of stuff, and then try to figure it out now, and do it better.
That's the ticket.
Always.
Well, cool. Then the peoples can catch us again next week, sometime around 10 a.m. somewhere.
Between 9 and 10 ish.
Between 9 and 10 ish.
And then in Vegas, that'll be not even close to the same time if you're talking about the same time. Dude, I saw this thing online the other day.
Oh God, I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Dude, okay, there was this guy, and he's like, why can't it just be like whatever time it is?
Whatever time it is, yeah.
If it's 1 o'clock here,
can it not just be 4 o'clock? Yeah.
In there, and then like it's 4. No. Why can't it be 1 o'clock in China?
1 o'clock in China.
It's still just 1 o'clock. And then,
well, who decides where the global clock is? Like, who's the global clock?
I don't know. Where's it at now? Out in the middle of the ocean somewhere. I don't know.
Antarctica.
Yeah, the North Pole.
That's next week's. Okay, we will open next week's show with who decided where the world clock is. I'll do some research on that. Probably the night before. Probably 20 minutes before I go live.
If it's 1 o'clock, it's 1 o'clock. That's all I'm saying. You should look into it. It's got something to do with the pyramids and spirals. I'm telling you guys,
time's not real.
It's a social construct. You got to get into your astrology. Everything was based off of where the stars and the constellations were based in the sky. They didn't say it was Thursday on March 15th. We got a plant. They said the man with the bow and arrow is in Pisces or whatever. And so
before we go out, I do want to point out that I learned something new this weekend, that the thing that everybody calls like the Aztec calendar that the world was going to end on and everything, it's not even a calendar. It was a sacrificial fight. It was a seal that went in the middle of like a sacrificial fighting pit where they fought and somebody died, and that was they said the Aztecs definitely sacrificed a lot of people. I did
Yeah.
read a lot about that.
And they killed a lot of folks.
But yeah, cool. All right, next week, 10 a.m.
Yeah.
somewhere.
Bye.